So, Josh, I mean, Josh and Trish, I mean, your film looks like a total spontaneous adventure, that something happened and you pursued it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I never had any understanding or interest in natural gas until basically they walked up on my back porch in the Upper Delaware River Basin, my family's home, which is part of that interconnected watershed system that brings water to New York City, to Philadelphia, southern New Jersey, about 16 million people. It's a pristine area, and that area is being leased for natural gas drilling, this new form of natural gas drilling called hydraulic fracturing. They offered us about $100,000 to lease 19.5 acres, and then I found out quickly that 50% of New York State was being leased, 65% of Pennsylvania, half of Ohio, all of West Virginia, and that we were in the largest natural gas drilling campaign, onshore drilling campaign in history, and it was in 34 states. And, you know, the gas industry, when they came to me and they come around to an area, they say, oh, you're going to make lots of money, there's no problems, you won't know we're here, we might not even drill. And then all, of course, my neighbors had looked into the process of fracking and found out that it injects toxic chemicals under the ground, and that these chemicals were turning up in people's water.
So what did you do? Did you just take up your bed and follow the story?
Yeah, well, I was really concerned, but I also kind of wanted to find out what exactly was going on. So a town not far away, about 50 miles, called Dimmock, they already were drilling. And when I went over there to talk to people, I found the whole place swarming with Halliburton trucks, residents extremely frightened, and that people's water was bubbling and fizzing, and that some people could light their water on fire, and their kids were getting sick, and nobody knew what was going on. And then I got handed this.
At the time?
Yeah,
so
I went there with the intent
filming.
of filming. Yeah, because I'd made like a 5-minute thing as an information, what I could find out of research of the process, because it's actually been exempted from the Safe Drinking Water Act. It was also exempt from the Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, and that there were, you know, little stories on the internet, but that told
tell us
thousands.
who we have to thank for that.
What's that?
To tell us who we have to thank for exempting it from all those.
Well, this was a project of Dick Cheney's and the Energy Task Force, and you know.
So you started. This was the story. You started the film. You shot stuff, and then did you have to start looking for finance to carry on? Did you know you were onto a big story?
Well, I'm a theater director. I run my own nonprofit in New York City. We produce, and I did one. I was actually at the tail end of finishing my feature film, so I had cameras, I had equipment, and I just took off to do this, basically without really dealing with funding. It was more like, with an invitation to drive around the American West is also, I mean, most people would.
So when did you decide on the tone of the film? One is that it's very, very roughly shot and that you're in it. So what gave you that kind of?
Well, people are extremely concerned with this all throughout New York State, and as we had segments of the film, like from Pennsylvania or a piece that you saw maybe from Colorado, we would show those 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and then there was an intro that I had done the voiceover for, which sort of gave an overview, and that we were actually went around New York City to all the community boards and we showed that. So we found that when showing it in a kind of activist way, people really liked the pieces that I was in, and that the voiceover was there, and it just sort of went from there. Because my story as being one of the people, I mean, and both Trish is on the other side of the Delaware River in New York State, and we're still very much under the gun here. I mean, I was testifying yesterday in the Upper Delaware, trying to get them to keep this gas drilling out of the watershed, and it's still very much an issue. I mean,
but you were flying by the seat of your pants. I mean, how did you shape the film? Did that come afterwards? Did you just shoot a lot of stuff?
Well, we follow it. It's a detective story. It's very hard to find out the real information about this. I had to go and get it. I wanted to experience what was happening, whether or not that was going to be a film or something I was just going to report back to people in my area. So I think we followed the geography. Matt Sanchez, the co-creator and editor, and I just basically had to go through a process of remembering every step of the way, and that became the narration, that became the discovery process. And it also needed to be funny, because the people, I mean, we took our sense of humor from the folks in the film, obviously, who have this incredible gallows sense of humor that comes through. To try to bring that out.
What was your role in this, Trish?
I produced it, and I came near the end of filming. I got involved on I'd met Josh when he did the first segment over 2 years ago, and he wasn't quite sure if it was going to become a full-length feature at that time. And I was pretty active in the community because when I heard about this, I was stunned at the thought of it in our backyards in such a pristine, clean environment in upstate New York. And when he showed me a rough assembly, I immediately became fully committed on every level and pulled in every resource. I've worked in film and television for over 22 years, and
You came to one of the earliest. I mean, we
Yeah.
would show pieces of this when we had 30 minutes. We would show 30 minutes, and you know, it was Trish turned up at that one of those little
Yes.
very very early on pieces that we were showing, because it was, the idea was to get the word out as much as we could, because this is the water supply for millions of people.
Yeah.
But it's also you know, the areas that are being drilled into Swiss cheese right now are some of them our most nationally beautiful places, all the way up to the foothills of the Grand Tetons. You see the Grand Mesa area of Colorado, the Colorado River, which is LA's water supply, all up along the headwaters is being fracked
how
to
long
hell.
did you shoot for?
Well, the one big road trip was about a month, and and a couple months before that, going back and forth to Dimmock. We ended up in the halls of Congress a few months later while we were still editing things in the trip. So all in all, about a year on and off. But filming, it's hard to separate filming from editing, from talking about this.
Right.
It seems to happen every single day. We're out there.
So when did you know when to stop?
Sundance deadline.
Sundance. Sundance.
I mean, right?
It was Sundance.
It's incredibly motivating to finish. By the time you have to send the DVD we sent was 2.5 hours, I think, the first version. And Matt had done, we actually thought we'd sent them a 3.5-hour version because we added it up wrong. And I was coming home from testifying in New York City at the Department of Environmental Conservation, and I get home and Matt goes, "It's only 2.5 hours." And I was like, great, we just cut like a whole hour without even thinking about it. And then, of course, you know, it was that fast because it's an emergency, and we tried to address that as quickly as possible.